And more than 100,000 Russian troops have surrounded Ukraine on three sides. And now Moscow is denying a British report that it's looking to force a so-called puppet government, one that supports Russian causes. Holly Williams is in Ukraine with more on this. Holly, good morning.
Good morning. Well, the families of U.S. diplomats here at the American Embassy in Kyiv are now leaving Ukraine. They've been ordered to evacuate, but some Ukrainians have told us that they have nowhere to run and can only hope for peace with the threat of attack hanging over them.
A crossing point on Ukraine's northern border with Russia. On the other side of this frontier are around 100,000 Russian troops. And to the west, Russian fighter jets and missile systems are moving into place in Belarus for what Russia says are military exercises.
It's been 30 years since the Cold War ended, inspiring hopes of a safer and more stable world. But now a US ally here in Europe is living in fear of a Russian invasion.
Nina Balaya lives in the nearest village, potentially in the firing line if there's any kind of Russian incursion. She showed us her cellar where she stores food for the winter. She has another purpose in mind if the Russians show up.
You can take shelter down here if the Russians invade.
Most Ukrainians are far from wealthy. Now their freedom and their young democracy are threatened by their colossal neighbour. And what some say is President Vladimir Putin's ambition to create a new Russian empire. Russia claims it has no plans to invade and blames the US and its allies for ratcheting up tensions by arming Ukraine. In truth, this country is already fighting Russian-backed separatists, and the US is supporting it with training and weapons. $200 million of emergency military assistance from America has already started arriving.
What they do is they twist reality. They are always denying, what is quite obvious, in terms of the form of aggression that they're undertaking.
General H.R. McMaster is a former national security advisor and says President Putin only understands deterrence.
What lessons should the US have learned by this point about how to negotiate with Russia, how to negotiate with Putin?
Power, Holly, right? It's power. I think Putin understands this. Putin will take whatever he can get.
Another shipment of American military equipment and munitions is expected to arrive here in Kyiv tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, NATO has just announced that it is sending troops, fighter jets and a warship to bolster defences in Eastern Europe. Anne-Marie?
I'm wondering, Holly, just what it's like there on the ground where you are. What are people saying? Are they concerned about how things have changed over the last 24 hours?
Anne-Marie, I think one of the really important things to understand about Ukraine is that people here have been living with Russian aggression or the threat of Russian aggression for years. Remember, Russia has already invaded Ukraine. Back in 2014, the Russians invaded. They seized control of the Crimean Peninsula, an act that was illegal under international law, certainly according to the US and its allies. And then in eastern Ukraine, also since 2014, the Russians have been backing an armed, violent separatist rebellion. That's a conflict that's ongoing and that the Ukrainian government says has cost more than 14,000 lives. And this is certainly not the first time that Ukraine has had thousands of Russian troops massed along its border. I think, though, that there are really two big uncertainties for the people of Ukraine. One is an invasion actually going to happen? Because remember, Russia denies that it has any plans to invade. It's America and its allies that are saying, there are indications that this is going to happen. And if you're not going to invade, then maybe you should explain to us why you've got 100,000 troops along the border. The other big uncertainty is if a Russian attack happens, what form will it take? Will it be a full-blown invasion of Ukraine? Will it be a smaller incursion? Will it be, Russian fighters or mercenaries who are not in uniform? That's certainly a possibility that President Biden has highlighted. Or could it even take the form of a cyber attack? So I think it's those uncertainties that are hanging over the heads of Ukrainians that are really fueling their fear.
And perhaps another way of weakening a country could be what we're hearing from the British government. The British government is alleging that there is a plot put together by Russia to install a pro-Kremlin leader in Kyiv. Can you tell us more about this? I know Russia is denying this, just like they're denying there are any plans to invade Ukraine.
Yeah, so the British government put this out on over the weekend. And what they're saying is that they have intelligence that the Russians are plotting some kind of regime change. They didn't provide any evidence for that. And they said that intelligence showed that they were considering a character known as Yevhen Murayev as a possible kind of pro-Kremlin leader here in Ukraine. I should say this report is being considered or dealt with a great deal of skepticism here in Ukraine. This character, Murayev, he's a former member of parliament. His political party currently has no seats in Ukraine's parliament, and he is now actually operating a TV channel. He appears on the TV channel himself that's widely regarded as pro-Russian, but he has really downplayed these reports, and he claims that he's actually under Russian sanctions, so he'd be a very unlikely candidate. So that report is not being taken very seriously here in Ukraine. However, you know, what people are taking very seriously, despite that, is the threat of Russian invasion.
Totally understandable. Holly, thank you very much.